Did you know the Catholic Church once sold tickets to heaven? That priests could marry, or that entire wars were fought over who got to appoint bishops? Centuries ago, Catholicism looked nothing like it does today. From bizarre trials to secret ceremonies, we're counting down the 10 most shocking practices Catholics abandoned and why some of these changes will leave you speechless. Before we move on, tell me in the comments what country you're watching from. You won't want to miss number 3. It's straight out of a horror movie.
Before we delve in deeper, please take 5 seconds to like this video and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on similar videos. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Back to our discussion.
10th, trial by ordeal. Imagine being accused of a crime in the year 1100. No lawyers, no evidence. Your fate? Decided by whether you could survive boiling water, a red-hot iron, or a single bite of bread. This was trial by ordeal, the Church's most brutal and bizarre form of divine justice. 1. Trial by fire. The accused had to carry a scorching iron rod 9 feet. 3 days later, a priest would inspect their burns. If the wounds festered, guilty. If they miraculously healed, innocent. Spoiler: infections didn't care about divine intervention. 2nd trial by water. Tied up and tossed into holy water. If you floated, the water rejected you as sinful. If you sank, God accepted you. But let's hope the priest fished you out before drowning. 3rd trial by blessed bread, the test of the morsel. A priest would bless a chunk of barley bread, then order the accused to swallow it. If they choked or gagged, guilty. If not, divine approval. Even a crumb could seal your fate. But here's the twist. The Church knew these trials were rigged. Clergy quietly exempted themselves, claiming only lay people needed testing. Meanwhile, they profited from the fear, collecting fees to bless the iron's waters and bread. So why did it end? In 1215, Pope Innocent III dropped a bombshell at the Fourth Lateran Council. He banned priests from participating in ordeals, calling them irrational and ungodly. Why? Because the Church realized a huge risk. If someone survived an ordeal, it proved God's mercy. But if they died, it made God look cruel, or worse, non-existent. Overnight, trials shifted from theatrics to testimony. Judges started demanding witnesses and evidence, laying the groundwork for today's legal systems. But the scars remained. Thousands had died, and the Church's reputation as a moral authority cracked under the weight of its own brutality. Next on our list involves the Vatican's pay-to-pray scheme that sparked a revolution. 9. Selling indulgences like tickets to heaven. What if I told you the Vatican once ran the ultimate get-out-of-hell-free scheme? For centuries, the Church sold indulgences, official documents claiming to reduce your time in purgatory for a price. But this wasn't just spiritual extortion. It sparked a holy war that fractured Christianity forever. Meet Johann Tetzel, the medieval equivalent of a televangelist. In 1517, he toured Germany, selling indulgences like divine coupons. Pay enough, and you could buy forgiveness for future sins, or even spring-load your dead grandma from purgatory. The catch? The cash wasn't funding prayers. It was building St. Peter's Basilica, a monument to papal power. Theology behind this? The Church claimed it held a treasury of merit, a spiritual bank of good deeds from Jesus and the saints. Popes argued they could transfer this merit to sinners for a fee. But peasants weren't gullible. One critic wrote, "The Pope's cash box is hell itself, swallowing souls." The fallout? Wars, massacres, and a divided Europe? By 1567, the Church finally banned the sale of indulgences, but kept the theology. To this day, Catholics can still earn indulgences through prayer or charity, just not with cash. Yet the damage was done. Half of Christendom had already left the fold. Coming up on our list involves a food rule so strict, breaking it could damn your soul. Spoiler, it's not about the communion wine. 8. Meat on Fridays? Forbidden. For over 1,500 years, eating meat on Fridays wasn't just a sin, it was a one-way ticket to hellfire. Catholics lived in fear of a single bite of beef until the 1960s, when the Church dropped a bombshell, go ahead, grill that burger. But the real story behind this rule? It's a tale of faith, rebellion, and a billion-dollar seafood empire built on guilt. It started in the 1st century. Early Christians fasted on Fridays to honor Jesus' sacrifice. No meat, no dairy, just bread and fish. But by the Middle Ages, the Church cranked it up. Skip meat every Friday and all of Lent, or risk eternal damnation. Why? Meat symbolized luxury and sin, while fish, humble, pure, and conveniently boosted the economy of coastal monasteries. Monks got rich selling fishing rights. Kings even passed laws to enforce the no-meat rule, like England's 1548 statute ordering butchers to pay fines for Friday sales. But the real power move? The Church declared this a mortal sin. One steak could condemn you to hell unless you confessed. Fast forward to the 1950s, Catholics worldwide were choking down fish sticks, tuna casseroles, and mock meat made of, wait for it, lentils shaped like ham. Restaurants scrambled to invent Friday specials, and seafood consumption doubled on Fridays. In the U.S., the fishing industry lobbied the Vatican to keep the rule. It was that profitable. Then came Vatican II. In 1966, the Church shocked the world. Meat on Fridays is now optional, but do penance somehow. Cue chaos. Traditionalists called it heresy. Seafood stocks plummeted, and Catholics split between guilt-tripped fish loyalists and rebels grilling burgers for the thrill. Old habits die hard. Even now, if I eat a hot dog on Friday, I half expect lightning to strike. But here's the twist. The rule never fully died. The Church still demands Friday penance, meats allowed, but you must substitute another sacrifice. Think, no Netflix, extra prayers, or finally calling your mom. And during Lent, meat still banned on Fridays, a nod to ancient tradition. Even popes bend the rules. In 2021, Francis sparked debate by allowing Catholics in Ukraine to eat meat on Fridays during wartime. Critics cried hypocrisy, but the Church shrugged, adapt or die. So next time you see a Friday fish fry, remember, this isn't just dinner. It's a 2,000-year-old power struggle between faith, tradition, and the eternal human desire to eat whatever the hell we want. Next on our list is the ancient Latin Mass that vanished overnight, then came roaring back in a battle that's still dividing the Church. 7. The Latin Mass vanished, then came back. In 1970, the Catholic Church erased a 1,500-year-old ritual overnight. The Latin Mass, a sacred tradition dating back to the Roman Empire, was replaced with modern services in English, Spanish, and Hindi. But when traditionalists revolted, the Vatican sparked a crisis that's still tearing parishes apart today. Let's rewind. For centuries, Mass was the same everywhere. Priests faced the altar, chanted in Latin, and performed rituals unchanged since the Middle Ages. But after Vatican II, 1962 to 1965, reformers argued the church needed to open the windows to the modern world. The Latin Mass was scrapped, and chaos followed. Overnight, ancient traditions vanished. Gregorian chant, replaced by folk hymns. Priest facing the altar. Now he's smiling at the crowd. For millions, it felt like spiritual whiplash. One traditionalist wrote, "They didn't just change the Mass, they murdered it." Enter Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, the rebel hero of traditionalists. He defied Rome, training priests to celebrate the old Latin Mass in secret. The Vatican excommunicated him in 1988, but his movement, the Society of St. Pius X, grew underground, amassing millions of followers. Then in 2007, Pope Benedict XVI dropped a bombshell. Any priest could celebrate the Latin Mass again, no permission needed. Traditionalists rejoiced, but progressives were furious. One bishop called it a betrayal of Vatican II. The church was now at war with itself. In 2021, Pope Francis reversed Benedict's decision, demanding bishops approve all Latin Masses. His reason? The old rite had become a symbol of division. Traditionalists exploded, protests erupted. Some called Francis a tyrant. Others accused him of erasing history. Love it or hate it, this isn't just about Latin. It's about who gets to define Catholicism and whether a 2,000-year-old faith can survive its own identity crisis. Up next on our list reveals a shocker about Catholic priests that's literally hard to believe. Hint, it involves love, marriage, and a medieval power play. 6. Priests used to marry. What if I told you the first pope, St. Peter himself, had a mother-in-law? That's right. The man Jesus called the Rock of the Church was married. For over 1,000 years, priests could wed, have kids, and pass down property, until a power-hungry medieval pope declared war on love. This is the untold story of Catholicism's most controversial rule, and why it's still dividing the church today. Let's start with the ultimate mic drop. The Bible proves early priests married. Peter had a wife. Paul even wrote that apostles brought believing wives on missions, 1 Corinthians 9:5. For centuries, marriage wasn't just allowed, it was normal. Fast forward to 300 AD, bishops, priests, and deacons across the Roman Empire raised families. Church fathers like St. Gregory of Nyssa wedded before ordination. The rule? Simple. Get married first, then become a priest. No scandal, no crisis. Just life. So why the crackdown? Enter the Gregorian reforms, an 11th century Vatican purge to cleanse the church. Pope Gregory VII declared war on Nicolitanism, clerical marriage, ranting that wives made priests slaves to lust. The real motive? Control. Married priests often passed church wealth to their kids, bleeding the Vatican's coffers. So in 1139, the church dropped a nuclear verdict at the Second Lateran Council. Canon 7 banned clerical marriage. Existing wives demoted to concubines. Children declared illegitimate overnight. Priests who resisted were excommunicated, or worse. Imagine the chaos. One decree erased thousands of families. Some priests rebelled, hiding wives and kids. Others fled to the Byzantine East, where the church still allowed married clergy. But Rome's message was clear. Your loyalty belongs to the church, not your heart. Here's the kicker. The ban never applied to Eastern Catholic churches. Today, Ukrainian or Melkite priests can still marry if they do it before ordination. But in the West, celibacy became a brutal badge of honor. and a PR nightmare. Now, the church is reaping what it sowed. With priest numbers plummeting, even conservatives whisper, should we bring back married priests? Pope Francis called it a ticklish question, while Amazonian bishops begged for ordaining married elders in remote villages. The Vatican's response? A hard maybe. Meanwhile, a silent majority wonders, if Peter had a wife, why can't we? So next time you see a priest, ask yourself, is celibacy truly divine or just a 900-year-old power play? The answer might determine whether Catholicism survives another millennium. Coming up on our list is so dark we had to blur the footage. Hint, it involves fire and a church that played executioner. 5. Executing heretics. In 16th century Spain, the church had a holy solution for doubters, reformers, and false believers. Burn them alive. Welcome to the Inquisition, a 600-year campaign of terror where Catholicism turned executioner, all in the name of saving souls. It began in 1231, when Pope Gregory IX launched the medieval Inquisition to root out heresy. Targets? Groups like the Cathars, who dared claim the church was corrupt. Their punishment? Auto da fe, act of faith. A public spectacle where sinners were burned to ash, while crowds prayed for their souls. But the worst came in 1478, the Spanish Inquisition. Fueled by paranoia about Jewish and Muslim converts, torturers devised horrors like the rack, waterboarding, and the Judas cradle, all to extract confessions. If you repented, you might get a merciful death by strangulation before the flames. If not, you burned alive, screaming for a God the church claimed you'd betrayed. Some victims became legends. Take Giordano Bruno, burned for claiming the universe was infinite, or Joan of Arc, the warrior saint later canonized by the same church that killed her. The message? Submit or become fuel for the fire. So why did it end? Blame the Enlightenment. By the 1700s, thinkers like Voltaire mocked the Inquisition as barbaric. Nations began banning torture. Even the church, facing global shame, quietly disbanded its last Inquisition tribunal in 1834, but never formally apologized. Today, the Vatican calls the Inquisition a painful chapter, yet its legacy lives on. In 2000, John Paul II repented for its violence, but critics called it too little, too late. And in 2023, conspiracy theorists still rant about deep state inquisitions, proving fear never dies. Here's the truth they don't teach in Sunday school. The Inquisition wasn't about saving souls, it was about control. Burn a heretic, and you don't just kill a person, you kill curiosity, dissent, and the very idea that faith could survive a question. Next up on our list is a fasting rule so extreme, even monks nearly starved. 4. Fasting for half the year. Imagine surviving on one meal a day. No meat, no cheese, no wine, for half the year. This wasn't a fad diet. It was Catholic law. For over 1,000 years, the Church ordered believers to endure a fasting marathon so brutal, even monks hallucinated from hunger. Let's devour the stomach-churning truth. The early church didn't mess around. Lent, 40 days of starvation. Advent, 40 more. Add every Friday, Ember Days, and vigils before holidays, and you're fasting 150 days a year. Monks took it further. Desert hermits like St. Anthony ate one meal a week, claiming hunger purified the soul. Spoiler, it mostly purified their intestines. But slip up and you'd face hellfire. In 1215, the Church declared breaking fast a mortal sin, meaning one stolen bite of bacon could damn you. Confession lines stretched for miles every Friday. Yet the Vatican granted loopholes. Pregnant women, laborers, and kings could eat meat, because apparently God plays favorites. Today, the fasting flame flickers. Eastern Catholics still endure strict vegan Lents. Others fast by quitting TikTok. And the Church? It quietly admits ancient fasting was excessive, but still urges self-denial. Translation: do something, but maybe don't faint in church. Up next on our list reveals the Pope's private army. 3. The Pope's private army. The Pope doesn't just have an army. He has the oldest active military unit on Earth. Meet the Swiss Guards, 135 soldiers sworn to defend the Vatican with their lives. But 500 years ago, these weren't just ceremonial protectors. They were the Vatican's secret weapon in holy wars. And their bloodiest battle reshaped Europe forever. Back when popes ruled the Papal States, a kingdom stretching across Italy, they needed more than prayers to keep power. They raised armies, hired mercenaries, and even ordered invasions. But in 1506, Pope Julius II made a gamble. He recruited Swiss mercenaries famed for their brutality as his personal guard. Why? Because one Swiss soldier could slaughter 10 enemies, and loyalty didn't come cheap. Their finest hour? A disaster. In 1527, 20,000 rogue troops stormed Rome to punish the Pope. Only 189 Swiss guards stood in their way. For hours, they fought hall to hall, buying time for Pope Clement VII to flee through a secret tunnel. Just 42 guards survived. Today, they're hailed as martyrs. But back then, it was a wake-up call. Even God's army couldn't stop bullets. By 1870, the Papal States fell. The Vatican shrank to a tiny city-state, and the Swiss Guards' role shifted from warriors to symbols. Those iconic uniforms? Designed by Michelangelo? Probably not. Their weapons? Mostly for show, though they still train with SIG assault rifles. Yet every recruit vows, "I will die for the Pope." The last time they drew blood? 1998, when a guard shot a deranged tourist storming the gates. Don't be fooled by the stripes. To join, you must be Swiss, Catholic, single, and trained in combat. Oh, and memorize every pope's name since 1506. It's part boot camp, part seminary, and 100% avowal poverty. Salary? Just $1,700 a month. But hey, you get to live in a Renaissance palace. Here's the truth nobody admits. The Swiss Guard aren't just protecting the Pope. They're guarding the idea of papal power, a ghost of the Church's political might dressed in stripes and feathers. Next up takes us deep beneath Rome's streets, where early Christians worshipped in tunnels of bones, and why they traded tombs for temples. Second Mass in secret catacombs. Beneath the streets of Rome lies a labyrinth of death, 300 miles of tombs stacked with the bones of 6 million souls. But 2,000 years ago, these catacombs weren't just graves. They were the original underground churches where Christians risked execution to celebrate Mass, surrounded by the corpses of martyrs. Imagine it's 250 AD. Christianity is illegal. Getting caught at Mass means crucifixion, fed to lions, or burned alive as human torches. So believers vanish underground, literally. The catacombs, dug to bury the dead, became their secret sanctuary. Here, they baptized converts, shared Eucharist, and carved cryptic symbols like the ichthys, fish, to mark Christ's presence and taunt Rome. These tunnels weren't just hideouts. They were theological masterpieces. Early art depicted Bible stories as codes. Jonah's escape from the whale hinted at resurrection. The Good Shepherd carried a lamb, not a cross, to avoid Roman detection. Even the dead played a role. Martyrs' tombs doubled as altars, their bones radiating holy power to the living. Every mass was a gamble. Spotters guarded tunnel entrances. Worshippers muffled hymns to echoes. If soldiers raided, escape routes twisted like mazes, but one wrong turn meant suffocation in the dark. Yet the faithful kept coming. Why? Because in this kingdom of shadows, they tasted defiance and divinity. Everything changed when Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity in 313 AD. Overnight, believers traded tombs for basilicas. The catacombs fell silent, but their legacy didn't. When the church later faced Viking raids or plagues, it hid relics back in these tunnels, sealing martyrs' bones like spiritual treasure. So next time you complain about church being boring, remember, there was a time when worship required the courage to stare death in the face and call it holy. Don't go yet. Final on our list reveals a power struggle so explosive it nearly destroyed medieval Europe. First, lay investiture, kings versus popes. This wasn't just a power struggle. This was spiritual warfare. For 200 years, kings and popes clashed over a single question. Who controls the soul of Europe? The answer? Swords, betrayal, and a pope who forced an emperor to grovel barefoot in the snow. Buckle up. This is the original Game of Thrones. The year? 1075. The Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV thinks he's untouchable. He's been selling bishop seats to the highest bidder, pocketing cash, and stuffing the church with corrupt lackeys. But Pope Gregory VII isn't having it. He drops a nuclear edict. Only the Pope can appoint bishops. Kings who defy him, excommunicated, hell awaits. Gregory's Dictatus Papae wasn't subtle. Claiming the Pope holds divine right over all rulers, he declared, kings are just interns. Henry retaliated by calling Gregory a false monk and ordering his assassination. The Pope's reply? You're excommunicated, buddy. Have fun in hell. But Henry underestimated medieval public relations. Excommunication meant his nobles could revolt. So he trekked across the Alps in winter, stood barefoot in the snow for 3 days, and begged forgiveness. Gregory, loving every second, made him wait like a peasant. When he finally relented, the Pope's power was absolute, or so he thought. Henry got his revenge. He invaded Rome, drove Gregory into exile, and installed a puppet pope. But the fight didn't die. For decades, Europe burned as kings and popes clashed, thousands died, crops rotted, and peasants wondered, is God even watching? So next time a politician quotes the Bible, remember, this 900-year-old feud proves that mixing God and power is like gasoline and matches. All it takes is one spark, and history repeats. That's all for our list. But the drama never stops. Smash the subscribe button, and you can also see other interesting videos above.